To the outside world, the Hemlock family was blessed. They had Selene, the golden child, the wolf shifter, the perfection of nature. The daughter who could shift into a magnificent creature of power and grace, whose howl could silence an entire pack into reverent submission. And they had Anya, the mute servant girl who scrubbed the mud from her sister's boots. The pack whispered that Anya was born empty. A mistake. A hollow shell without a voice or a wolf. A genetic failure in a world where your wolf was your worth, your identity, your very soul. But they were wrong. Anya wasn't born empty. She had been emptied. Her destiny hadn't been lost, it had been cut out of her and stitched into the sister standing in the spotlight. And tonight, at the mating ball where Alpha King Kalen came hunting for a queen, the truth was about to rip through the lies like claws through silk. The rain hammered against the crystal windows of the Hemlock Estate ballroom, but inside, the air shimmered with warmth and magic and the intoxicating scent of power. Hundreds of candles floated near the vaulted ceiling, casting golden light across the marble floors where the most elite wolves of the realm had gathered. Anya knelt in the shadows behind a marble pillar, her fingers raw and bleeding as she scrubbed at a wine stain on the pristine white runner that led to the dais. Her dress, if you could call the threadbare gray thing a dress, clung to her thin frame, still damp from where Selene had accidentally spilled an entire pitcher of rose water on her an hour earlier. No one looked at her. No one ever did. She was furniture. A ghost. The family's shameful secret hidden in plain sight. Across the ballroom, Selene glowed like a sun. Her gown was spun from cloth of gold, hugging curves that had been blessed by the moon goddess herself. Her honey-blonde hair cascaded down her back in perfect waves, and when she laughed, that crystalline, musical sound, every unmated male in the room turned toward her like flowers seeking light. She was everything Anya wasn't. Everything Anya would never be. Stop staring at your sister, mute. The voice came from above. Anya's mother, Duchess Alara Hemlock, stood over her, resplendent in emerald silk, her beautiful face twisted with disgust. You're leaving, smudges. If you embarrass this family tonight, I'll have you locked in the cellar for a week. Do you understand? Anya nodded, dropping her gaze back to the floor. Her hands moved mechanically, scrubbing, always scrubbing. She had no voice to defend herself. No words to scream the truth that clawed at her chest every single day. The king is almost here, the Duchess hissed, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. When he arrives, you will make yourself invisible. You will not be seen. You will not exist. Selene is going to be chosen as his mate, and nothing will ruin this for her. For us. The Duchess's heel dug into Anya's hand as she walked away, grinding down with deliberate cruelty. Anya bit her lip until she tasted blood, swallowing the cry that wanted to escape. Pain was an old friend. Silence was survival. But something felt different tonight. Something in the air had changed. The wolves around her were growing restless, their excited chatter dying into an uneasy quiet. The scent of fear began to mix with the perfume and wine. Then the music stopped. Not slowed. Not faded. Stopped. As if someone had reached into the very air and strangled the sound from existence. Every head in the ballroom turned toward the grand entrance. Anya felt it before she saw him, a pressure against her chest, a weight that made her want to crawl into the earth and hide. The ancient instinct of prey recognizing a predator that could swallow worlds. Alpha King Kalen had arrived. He didn't walk into the ballroom. He invaded it. 7 feet of pure lethal power, wrapped in black leather and midnight fur that draped across his massive shoulders. His face was carved from stone and shadow, all brutal angles and sharp edges, with eyes that burned like molten silver. Scars marked his jaw, his throat, his knuckles, the beautiful brutality of a man who had conquered kingdoms with his bare hands. This was not a king who sat on thrones and signed treaties. This was a warlord, a creature of blood and battle and primal dominance. He hadn't come for a wife. He had come for a weapon. The crowd parted before him like water before a blade. No one spoke. No one dared breathe too loudly. Even the most powerful alphas in the room lowered their gazes, instinct overriding pride. Duke Hemlock stepped forward, his politician's smile firmly in place despite the tremor in his hands. Your Majesty, what an honor. Where is she? Kalen's voice was gravel and smoke, dark as the forest at midnight. It rolled through the ballroom like distant thunder, vibrating in Anya's bones. Your Majesty? The Duke's smile faltered. The female you wrote to me about. Kalen's silver eyes swept across the room with predatory focus. The one with the golden wolf. The one blessed by the moon herself. Where is she? Pride surged across the Duke's face. He turned, extending his hand toward Celine with theatrical flourish. My king, may I present my daughter, Celine Hemlock. The finest. Bring her forward. It wasn't a request. Celine didn't need to be told twice. She glided across the marble floor with practiced grace, her golden dress shimmering with each step. Every movement calculated to showcase her beauty, her power, her worthiness. When she reached the king, she sank into a perfect curtsy, tilting her head to expose the elegant column of her throat, the traditional gesture of submission and offering. Your Majesty, Celine breathed, her voice honey-sweet. I am honored beyond words. Kalen moved like lightning. One moment he stood 3 feet away. The next, he was right there, towering over Celine, his massive frame blocking out the light. He leaned down, and Anya watched from her hiding place behind the pillar as the king inhaled deeply, drawing in Celine's scent. The entire ballroom held its breath. This was it. The moment where the king would claim his mate, where the bond would snap into place, where Celine would become queen and the Hemlock family would rise to unimaginable power. Celine's smile was radiant, victorious. And then Kalen recoiled. His lip curled back from his teeth in unmistakable revulsion. The sound that rumbled from his chest wasn't a growl, it was worse. It was disappointment. Disgust. You smell like royalty, little wolf, Kalen said, his voice carrying across the deathly silent ballroom. But underneath the perfume and the pretty lies. He leaned closer, and Celine's confidence cracked, fear bleeding through. You smell like a thief. The words landed like a blade. Gasps erupted throughout the crowd. Celine's face went white, then red, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. The Duke stumbled forward, panic replacing his political mask. Your Majesty, I don't understand. My daughter is pure, blessed by the moon herself. But Kalen wasn't listening anymore. His head had turned, those silver eyes scanning the ballroom with renewed intensity. Searching. Hunting. Anya's heart began to race, her instincts screaming at her to run, to hide, to disappear the way she'd learned to disappear her entire life. But she couldn't move, because the king's gaze had found her. In the shadows. Behind the pillar. Kneeling in her rags with bleeding hands and tangled dark hair. For one impossible moment, their eyes locked. And Anya felt something inside her chest, something she'd thought was dead, suddenly flicker to life. A warmth. A recognition. A pull so strong it stole what little breath she had left. No. No, no, no. Kalen's expression shifted. The disgust melted away, replaced by something intense and focused and almost hungry. He took a step toward her. Then another. The Duke's eyes went wide with horror as he realized where the king was looking. Your Majesty. No. That's nothing. Just a servant. Ignore her. Please, my perfect daughter. Kalen didn't slow. The Duke threw himself directly into the king's path, arms spread wide, his voice rising to a desperate shout. Take my perfect daughter. She is everything you need. Everything you could want. Blessed blood, pure lineage, the golden wolf herself. The king's hand shot out. He grabbed the Duke by the front of his expensive jacket and shoved. The powerful Duke, a man who commanded respect across 3 territories, flew backward like he weighed nothing. His body hit a marble pillar with a sickening crack before he crumpled to the floor. Screams erupted. Wolves scattered. But no one moved to help. No one dared interfere. Because Alpha King Kalen was walking toward Anya, and the look in his eyes said he would annihilate anyone who got in his way. Anya tried to scramble backward, her hands slipping on the wet marble. Terror locked her throat. This was it. She'd been seen. She'd drawn his attention. She was going to die for daring to exist in his presence. Kalen dropped to one knee in front of her. The king, the most powerful wolf in the realm, knelt in the dirt and spilled wine and blood, bringing himself eye level with the broken mute girl everyone pretended didn't exist. His hand reached out, rough and scarred and impossibly gentle, catching her chin between his fingers. Anya froze, trembling violently, waiting for the pain. Waiting for him to snap her neck and be done with it. But he didn't hurt her. He turned her face toward the light, studying her with an intensity that felt like being seen for the first time in her entire life. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Anya felt that strange warmth in her chest pulse stronger, like a dying star suddenly flooding with light. "There you are," Kalen murmured, his voice soft enough that only she could hear. "I've been looking for you." Then he raised his voice, and it shook the chandeliers. "You call her broken?" The king's words were a whip-crack of rage directed at the cowering Hemlock family. His silver eyes blazed as he stood, pulling Anya up with him, his arm wrapping around her waist to keep her shattered body upright. "You dare call her empty? Wolfless." He turned to face Celine, who stood frozen in her golden gown, tears streaming down her perfect face. "I can hear her wolf screaming," Kalen growled. "Screaming inside your chest. Inside your bones. Calling out to its true owner." The Duchess let out a strangled sound. The Duke tried to rise, blood streaming from his nose. "Your Majesty, please, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." Kalen's arm tightened around Anya protectively. And then, with devastating casualness, he scooped her up into his arms, this broken, bleeding, worthless girl, cradling her against his chest like she was made of starlight. The entire ballroom erupted into chaos. Celine screamed, her wolf surging forward, golden light crackling across her skin. "No, she's nothing. I am the Blessed One. I am." "You," Kalen interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal purr, "are a thief wearing stolen skin." He turned his back on the weeping sister, on the stunned crowd, on the family that had tortured Anya for 20 years. "Keep the thief," the Alpha King declared to the horrified ballroom. "I want the broken one." And with that, he carried Anya out into the rain, into the night, into a destiny that had been carved into her bones long before she'd been emptied of everything that made her whole. The last thing Anya heard before darkness took her was Celine's wolf, her wolf, howling in anguish. Not in rage. In loss. Because even stolen power recognizes its true master. If this beginning set something burning in your chest, stay with us. Subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Because this is just the moment the world stopped, and the real story? It's about to tear everything apart. The rain felt like a baptism. Anya couldn't process what was happening. Her mind had fractured somewhere between the king's hand on her face and the moment her feet left the ground. Now she was cradled against a chest that felt like warm stone, her cheek pressed against leather that smelled of pine smoke and winter wind and something wild she couldn't name. Alpha King Kalen didn't run from the estate. He walked. Slowly. Deliberately. Like he had all the time in the world and dared anyone to challenge him for it. Behind them, the ballroom had exploded into pandemonium. Anya could hear the Duchess shrieking, the Duke roaring orders, Celine's sobs turning into something animalistic and broken. Guards shouted. Wolves growled. But no one followed. No one was that stupid. The king's warriors materialized from the shadows like wraiths, 6 massive males who fell into formation around them without a word. They moved through the manicured gardens, past the fountain where Anya had been forced to bathe in ice water as punishment for stealing bread from the kitchen. Past the rose garden where Celine practiced her shifting while Anya was made to watch and applaud. Every step took her further from the only home she'd ever known. And Anya couldn't tell if she was terrified or relieved. "You're shaking." The king's voice rumbled through his chest, vibrating against Anya's ear. She tried to still her trembling, to make herself smaller, less noticeable, the way she'd learned to survive. But his arm only tightened around her. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't hide from me." Anya's eyes burned. She wanted to speak, to ask what he wanted with her, why he'd done this, what he planned to do now. But her throat was locked, sealed by the curse or blessing, depending on who you asked, that had stolen her voice before she'd taken her first breath. They reached the edge of the estate where a convoy of black vehicles waited, engines purring like patient beasts. The warriors opened a door to the largest one, but Kaelin paused, looking down at Anya with an expression she couldn't read. "I'm going to put you down now," he said, his voice gentler than she'd thought possible from a man who'd just thrown a duke across a ballroom. "But I need you to stay close. Can you do that?" Anya nodded, though she had no idea why he was asking. Where would she go? Back to the family that had made her sleep in a closet? Back to the sister who'd kicked her in the ribs for looking at her reflection wrong? Kaelin set her on her feet with surprising care, but kept one hand on her waist, steadying her or claiming her, she couldn't tell which. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. His presence didn't just fill space, it consumed it. Those silver eyes studied her face like he was memorizing every scar, every bruise, every story written in her skin. "What's your name?" he asked. Anya's hands moved automatically, signing the letters she'd taught herself since no one had bothered to teach her properly. "A-N-Y." The king's jaw tightened. "They didn't even give you a voice to speak it with, did they?" It wasn't really a question. Rage flickered behind his eyes, not at her, but for her. "Anya," he repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like something precious. "Do you know why I came to that circus tonight?" She shook her head. "I came because I received a letter 3 months ago. It described a female with the golden wolf, a wolf so powerful it could only belong to moon-blessed royalty. A wolf that could turn the tide of a war." His thumb traced a small circle on her waist, the gesture almost absent, like he didn't realize he was doing it. "I didn't come for a pretty face or a political alliance. I came for a weapon. A partner strong enough to survive what's coming." Anya's brow furrowed in confusion. She gestured to herself, to her thin frame, her torn dress, her obvious lack of everything. Kaelin's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You think I made a mistake?" She nodded, then immediately regretted it, fear spiking through her chest. Disagreeing with an alpha king was probably a death sentence. But he didn't strike her. Instead, he leaned down until his forehead nearly touched hers, until all she could see was silver and smoke and something that looked almost like wonder. "I can feel it," he whispered. "Right now. Buzzing under your skin like a trapped storm." They buried it deep, Anya. They wrapped it in chains and silence and shame. But it's there. His hand moved from her waist to rest over her heart, and Anya gasped at the sudden heat that flooded through her chest. "Your wolf is there. And she's not gone. She's just misplaced." Anya's eyes widened. Her hand flew up to cover his, pressing his palm harder against her chest as if she could feel what he felt. For 20 years, she'd been told she was empty. Hollow. A genetic mistake. And now this stranger, this terrifying, powerful stranger, was telling her it was all a lie? "The female in that ballroom," Kaelin continued, his voice dropping to something dark and dangerous. "The one they called blessed?" Her wolf felt wrong. Sick. Like a transplanted organ that never quite took. He pulled back slightly, studying Anya's face. "But when I got near you, everything in me went quiet. My wolf, who hasn't known peace in a decade, went still. Like he recognized something. Someone. One of the warriors cleared his throat pointedly. My king, we should move. The Hemlock Pack will send word to the council. There will be questions. Kaelin straightened, but didn't release Anya. Let them question. I found what I came for. He guided her toward the vehicle, his hand never leaving the small of her back. And I'm not giving her back. The interior of the vehicle was pure luxury. Leather seats, darkened windows, and enough space for Kaelin's massive frame. Anya found herself tucked into the corner, trying to take up as little room as possible, while the king sprawled across from her like a dark god surveying his domain. The convoy began to move, leaving the Hemlock estate behind. Anya watched through the rain-streaked window as the golden lights grew smaller, until they disappeared entirely into the black forest. You're afraid of me. Anya's gaze snapped to Kaelin. He was watching her with unnerving focus, his head tilted slightly. It wasn't a question, but she nodded anyway. What was the point in lying? Good, he said, surprising her. Fear keeps you sharp. Keeps you careful. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, bringing himself closer. But I don't want you terrified, Anya. I need you to understand something. She waited, her heart hammering against her ribs. I didn't take you to hurt you, Kaelin said slowly, carefully, like he was trying to convince himself as much as her. I took you because you're mine. Not as property, as something that belongs to me the way the moon belongs to the night. As something I've been searching for without knowing I was searching. He ran a hand through his dark hair, frustration bleeding into his features. I know that sounds insane. I know I just pulled you out of the only life you've known. But that family wasn't your life. It was your prison. Anya's throat tightened. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. I saw the scars, Kaelin continued, his voice going soft and lethal. On your wrists. Your ankles. The ones hidden under your dress. His hands clenched into fists. They chained you. It wasn't a question, but Anya nodded anyway. Sometimes, when she'd tried to leave the closet without permission, they'd shackled her to the water pipes for days. To teach her obedience. To remind her of her place. The temperature in the vehicle dropped as Kaelin's rage filled the space like a living thing. The warriors in the front seats shifted uncomfortably. Even Anya felt the urge to press herself flatter against the door. But then Kaelin closed his eyes and took a long, controlled breath. When he opened them again, the fury was banked but not gone, transformed into something colder and more dangerous. No one will ever chain you again, he said quietly. That's a promise, Anya. And I don't make promises I can't keep. The vehicle hit a bump, jostling Anya forward. Kaelin's hand shot out instinctively, steadying her, pulling her away from the door and closer to him. Before she could process what was happening, she found herself tucked against his side, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. Sleep, he commanded gently. We have a long journey ahead, and you look like you haven't slept properly in years. Anya tensed, every instinct screaming that this was a trap. Men who touched her always hurt her. Kindness always came with a price. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But Kaelin didn't move. Didn't grope or grab or demand. He simply held her, his body heat seeping into her rain-soaked skin, his steady heartbeat a rhythm that her own began to match. I've been watching you for 3 weeks, he admitted into the darkness, his voice almost conversational. I arrived early. Stayed in the shadows. I needed to see the female they claimed was blessed, needed to judge if she was worthy of what I was about to ask of her. Anya's eyes widened. 3 weeks? I saw you, Kaelin continued. In the gardens at dawn, feeding the crows even though you barely had food for yourself. In the kitchens late at night, reading books you'd stolen from the library and hidden under the floorboards. I saw your sister kick you down the stairs, and I saw you get back up without crying. His arm tightened around her. I saw your mother burn your hands for touching something that wasn't meant for servants. And I saw you wrap the burns yourself and go back to work an hour later. Anya couldn't breathe. He'd seen all of that? He'd watched her humiliation, her pain, her private moments, and he'd done nothing? As if reading her thoughts, Kaelin's voice turned rough. I wanted to burn that estate to the ground every single day. But I needed to be sure. Needed to understand what I was dealing with. He turned her face toward him with gentle fingers. And then tonight, when I walked into that ballroom and smelled that thief wearing your power like a costume, when I saw you hiding in the shadows like you thought you deserved to be invisible, I knew. Knew what? Anya wanted to ask. But she had no voice. Kaylin's thumb brushed across her bottom lip, and Anya's breath caught. I knew you were the one I'd been looking for, he whispered. Not the golden wolf in the spotlight. The broken one in the dark who still had fight in her eyes. A tear finally escaped, sliding down Anya's cheek. Kaylin caught it with his thumb, his expression softening into something that looked almost like pain. I'm not a good man, Anya, he said quietly. I've killed more people than I can count. I've conquered kingdoms and burned rebellions to ash. I'm called the Winter King because everywhere I go, death follows. His silver eyes locked onto hers. But I keep my promises. And I swear to you on my crown, on my life, on every drop of blood in my veins, I will find out what they did to you. I will get your wolf back. And I will make them pay for every scar they carved into your skin. Anya stared at him, this beautiful monster who'd just stolen her from everything she'd ever known, and realized something terrifying. She believed him. Against all logic, against all reason, against every lesson she'd learned about trusting the powerful, she believed him. And maybe that made her a fool. Maybe this was just another prison with prettier walls. Maybe he would hurt her worse than her family ever had. But for the first time in her entire life, someone had looked at her and seen something worth saving. Even if it destroyed her, Anya thought, as exhaustion finally pulled her under, even if this was all a lie. At least she would have had this one moment where someone made her feel like she mattered. Kaylin felt the exact second Anya fell asleep against him. Her body went limp, her breathing evening out into the deep rhythm of true rest. He wondered how long it had been since she'd felt safe enough to actually sleep instead of merely surviving the night. Too long, his wolf growled in his mind. They starved her, beat her, stole from her. I know, Kaylin murmured aloud, his hand moving to stroke Anya's tangled hair with surprising gentleness. But she's ours now, and no one takes what's ours. In the front seat, his second-in-command, Thane, caught his eye in the rearview mirror. The scarred warrior raised an eyebrow, a silent question. The estate, Kaylin said quietly, careful not to wake the girl sleeping against his chest. Have it watched? Every member of that family. I want to know what they're hiding. And the sister? Thane asked. The one with the golden wolf? Kaylin's expression went cold. Especially her. Because that wolf doesn't belong to her. He looked down at Anya's face, so young and battered and beautiful in the darkness. And I'm going to prove it. The convoy drove on through the rain, carrying the broken girl and the king who'd claimed her toward a destiny neither of them fully understood yet. But in the shadows of the Iron Citadel, the king's fortress home, something ancient stirred. Something that had been waiting 20 years for the girl with the stolen wolf to finally come home. Anya woke to silk. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The sheets beneath her were softer than anything she'd ever touched, smooth and cool against her skin. The mattress didn't sag or creak. The pillow cradled her head like a cloud instead of the rolled-up jacket she'd been using for years. Then the memories crashed back. The ballroom. The king. The look on Celine's face when Kaylin had chosen the broken one instead of the perfect daughter. Anya's eyes snapped open. She was in a bedroom, no, a suite, that was larger than the entire servants' wing of the Hemlock estate. Massive windows stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing a dawn sky painted in shades of rose and gold. The walls were dark stone, but not cold. Tapestries depicting wolves and forests and battles softened the fortress aesthetic. A fireplace crackled with low flames. Furs were draped over chairs. Everything screamed power, wealth, and a very specific masculine taste. This was his room. Panic seized Anya's chest. She sat up too quickly, the world tilting as her empty stomach protested. She was still wearing the torn gray dress from last night, now stiff with dried rain and wine. Her feet were bare and filthy. Her hair hung in matted tangles around her face. She looked like exactly what she was, a servant who didn't belong in a place like this. The door opened. Anya flinched, pulling her knees to her chest instinctively, making herself smaller. But it wasn't Kaylin who entered. It was a woman older, with silver streaking through her dark hair and eyes that held the kind of sharpness that came from surviving things that should have killed you. "Easy, child," the woman said, her voice rough but not unkind. "I'm Mira. The king sent me to help you bathe and eat." She carried a tray loaded with food, real food, not scraps, and set it on the table near the fireplace. "He's in a war council meeting. Said you weren't to be disturbed until you woke on your own." Anya stared at her, then at the food, then back at her. Suspicion warred with hunger. This felt like a test. Like someone would burst in and punish her for daring to eat without permission. Mira seemed to read her thoughts. Her expression softened. "No one's going to hurt you for eating, girl." The king was very clear about that. She moved to the bathroom, and gods, there was a bathroom attached to the bedroom, and Anya heard water running. "Come, let's get you cleaned up. You'll feel more yourself once you're out of those rags." Anya hesitated, her hands twisting in the ruined fabric of her dress. She wanted to trust this woman. Wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd stumbled into something better than the nightmare she'd left behind. But trust was a knife that had cut her too many times. Still, what choice did she have? She was in the king's fortress, surrounded by his people, with no way to escape even if she wanted to. Slowly, Anya stood, her legs shaking slightly, and followed Mira into the bathroom. She stopped dead in the doorway. The bathtub was carved from black marble, large enough to fit 3 people comfortably. Steam rose from the water, carrying the scent of lavender and something else, something wild and green, like forest after rain. Candles flickered on every surface. Towels were stacked on a warming rack. Glass bottles filled with oils and soaps lined the counter. It was the most beautiful thing Anya had ever seen. "Go on," Mira encouraged. "It won't bite." Anya approached the tub like it might disappear if she moved too quickly. Her fingers trailed through the hot water, and she had to bite her lip to keep from crying. When was the last time she'd had a hot bath? The hemlocks made her bathe in the cold water from the garden hose, even in winter. Punishment for being what she was. Reminder of her place. Mira helped her out of the ruined dress, and Anya heard the woman's sharp intake of breath. She knew what Mira was seeing, the roadmap of scars that covered her body. Whip marks across her back. Burn scars on her hands and arms. The circular marks on her wrists and ankles where shackles had rubbed her skin raw over years of repeated use. But Mira didn't say anything. She simply guided Anya into the water and began to wash her hair with gentle hands, working through the tangles with patience Anya had never experienced before. "I was a slave once," Mira said quietly as she worked. "Taken in a raid when I was 14. Sold to a pack in the north where they bred females like livestock." Her hands never stopped moving, careful and methodical. "I thought I'd die in that place. Thought my bones would rot in their fields and no one would remember my name." Anya turned her head slightly, listening. "The king saved me," Mira continued. "Not because he needed to. Not because I was valuable. But because he was hunting the alpha who'd attacked one of his border towns, and he found their breeding compound by accident." Her voice went distant. "He killed them all. Every single male who'd bought or sold or hurt us. Then he burned the compound to the ground. Asked if any of us wanted to come with him, or if we'd rather be taken somewhere safe to start over." Anya's eyes widened. That didn't sound like the monster the stories described. The Winter King, they called him. The Alpha who conquered without mercy, who left frost and death in his wake. "Most of the girls chose to leave," Mira said, beginning to rinse Anya's hair. "But I stayed. Nowhere felt safe anymore except with the man who'd proven he'd kill to protect the broken things." She met Anya's eyes in the mirror. That's who he is, child. He doesn't save the pretty ones or the powerful ones. He saves the ones everyone else threw away. And once you're his, once he claims you as his people, he'll tear the world apart before he lets anyone hurt you again. Anya wanted to believe her. Gods, she wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. But she'd learned long ago that hope was more dangerous than despair. An hour later, Anya sat wrapped in a soft robe by the fire, eating slowly from the tray Mira had brought. Bread with actual butter. Cheese that didn't have mold on it. Fresh fruit. Meat that wasn't gristle and fat. Her stomach cramped after the third bite, too much richness after years of near starvation, but she couldn't stop. Mira watched her with knowing eyes. Small bites, child. Your body isn't used to being fed properly. Anya forced herself to slow down, even though everything in her screamed to eat as much as possible before someone took it away. The king wants to see you when you're ready, Mira said, pulling out a dress from the wardrobe. A simple thing, soft blue linen that would actually fit Anya's thin frame. But there's no rush. He said you could have the whole day to rest if you needed. Anya shook her head. She needed answers. Needed to understand what she was doing here, what he wanted from her, what price she'd have to pay for last night's rescue. Nothing was free. She'd learned that lesson in blood and bruises. Mira helped her into the dress, then brushed out her hair until it shone. When Anya finally looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the girl staring back. Clean. Federal dressed in clothes that weren't rags. She looked almost human. Come, Mira said gently. Let's get this over with so you can stop imagining worst-case scenarios. The king's study was exactly what Anya expected, all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books and maps and weapons that had clearly seen battle. Kalen stood at the window, his back to the door, shoulders tense beneath his black shirt. He turned when they entered, and Anya's breath caught. In daylight, he was somehow even more overwhelming. Tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Broad enough that he seemed to take up the entire room. But it was his face that held her, those sharp features, the scars, the silver eyes that saw too much. Mira, he said, his voice that same dark rumble from last night. Thank you. Leave us. Mira squeezed Anya's shoulder once, a gesture of support, then left, closing the door behind her. Silence stretched between them. Kalen studied her the way a scholar studied an ancient text, looking for hidden meaning in every line. You slept, he finally said. Good. You needed it. Anya nodded, her hands clasped in front of her to keep them from shaking. Are you afraid? He asked directly. She considered lying. Considered pretending to be braver than she was. But something in his gaze demanded honesty. So she nodded again. Of me, or of what comes next? Anya gestured vaguely, both, everything, the uncertainty that pressed down on her like a physical weight. Kalen moved closer, slow and deliberate, giving her time to flee if she wanted. When he was close enough to touch, he stopped. I need to show you something, he said quietly. But I need your permission first. I need to touch you, nothing inappropriate, just your back. Can you allow that? Every instinct screamed at her to say no. Being touched meant pain. Always pain. But Myra's words echoed in her head. Once you're his, he'll tear the world apart before he lets anyone hurt you again. Slowly, Anya turned around, presenting her back to him. She felt him lift the fabric of her dress, exposing the scars there. His sharp intake of breath told her he was seeing them clearly for the first time in daylight. These aren't just scars from beatings, Kalen said, his voice tight with controlled rage. This is something else. Something deliberate. His fingers traced along her spine, so gentle it made her want to weep, following a pattern she couldn't see. Here. Do you feel this? He pressed slightly on a spot between her shoulder blades, and Anya gasped. Heat flared under his touch, racing down her spine like liquid fire. Not painful, but intense. Overwhelming. That's a rune mark, Kalen said quietly, dropping her dress back into place. Blood magic. Very old. Very illegal. He moved around to face her again, and his expression was murderous. Someone carved a spell into your spine, Anya. A spell designed to suppress, to block, to cage something inside you. Anya's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Your wolf, Kaelin confirmed. She's not gone. She's trapped. Locked inside you by blood magic that's been working for. He calculated mentally. Your whole life. Since birth, most likely. The room spun. Anya grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from falling. All this time. All these years of being called empty, broken, cursed. And it had all been a lie. Not a genetic failure. Not the moon goddess's rejection. Someone had done this to her. On purpose. Kaelin caught her before her knees buckled, guiding her to a chair. Breathe, he commanded gently. In and out. That's it. When Anya's vision cleared, she found him kneeling in front of her, his large hands engulfing hers. I need to find out who did this, he said. And why. But I have a theory, and you're not going to like it. Anya gestured for him to continue, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Your sister, Kaelin said carefully. The golden wolf. When I got close to her last night, my wolf reacted with immediate rejection. The scent was wrong. The power felt wrong. Like. He struggled for the right words. Like a coat that doesn't fit properly. Beautiful on the outside, but uncomfortable. Unnatural. Anya shook her head frantically. No, that couldn't be right. Celine had always had her wolf. She'd shifted for the first time at 13, right on schedule. She was blessed. Perfect. I think, Kaelin said slowly, that your sister has your wolf. And I think your family knows exactly what they did. The world tilted again. Anya's mind raced back through 20 years of memories. Her mother's disgust. Her father's anger. Celine's cruelty. The way they'd always kept her separate, hidden, like a shameful secret. The way Celine had always looked at her with something that wasn't quite guilt. I've already sent for my royal witch, Kaelin continued. She's the best in the realm. If anyone can untangle this blood magic and figure out what was done, it's her. His thumbs rubbed circles on the backs of Anya's hands. But I need you to be prepared, Anya. This kind of magic, it doesn't just happen. Someone had to perform the ritual. Someone had to choose to take your wolf and give it to your sister. Someone like her parents. The betrayal cut deeper than any whip ever had. She'd known they hated her. Known they saw her as a burden. But this was calculated. Premeditated. They'd stolen her soul and given it to their favorite daughter like it was a birthday present. Tears streamed down Anya's face, hot and angry and heartbroken all at once. Her hands trembled in Kaelin's grip. She wanted to scream, but her voice was gone. Wanted to rage, but she had no words. So she just cried, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. And Kaelin, this terrifying king, this man of war and death, pulled her into his arms and held her. He didn't tell her to stop. Didn't tell her to be strong. He just held her while she shattered, his hand stroking her hair, his deep voice murmuring words she couldn't quite hear but felt in her bones. I've got you, he kept saying. I've got you. And I promise, Anya. I promise on everything I am, we will get her back. Your wolf. Your voice. Everything they stole from you. We'll get it all back. Anya clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had just revealed itself to be built on lies. And for the first time since she was a child, she let herself hope. Maybe, just maybe, the broken girl could be made whole again. Even if it meant destroying everyone who'd ever hurt her to do it. 3 days passed in the Iron Citadel like a fever dream. Anya learned the rhythm of the fortress, the way warriors trained at dawn, their growls and clashing weapons echoing through the stone corridors. The way meals were communal, loud, and nothing like the silent, tense dinners at the Hemlock estate. The way people looked at her with curiosity instead of contempt. She learned that Kaelin didn't sleep much. That he paced the halls at night like a caged animal, his restlessness bleeding through the walls. that he always made sure she ate, checking on her between meetings and training sessions, his presence becoming something she looked for instead of feared. She learned that being seen was more terrifying than being invisible. On the fourth morning, everything changed. Anya woke to find Kalen already in the sitting area of his suite. Their suite, she supposed, since he'd refused to let her sleep anywhere else. "You're safest here," he'd said. "And I don't sleep anyway." He'd taken the couch, giving her the bed, and that small act of consideration had done more to earn her trust than any pretty words could have. But this morning, he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him, ancient and ageless all at once, with white hair that fell to her waist and eyes that shifted colors like oil on water. She wore layers of dark fabric stitched with silver runes, and the air around her hummed with power that made Anya's teeth ache. "Ah," the woman said, those strange eyes locking onto Anya. "There she is. The girl with the stolen soul." Kalen stood immediately. "Anya, this is Seraphine, my royal witch. The one I told you about." Seraphine rose with fluid grace, moving toward Anya like a snake, beautiful and dangerous. "Come here, child. Let me see what they've done to you." Anya glanced at Kalen. He nodded once, a silent reassurance. Slowly, Anya crossed the room until she stood before the witch. Seraphine didn't ask permission. Her hands shot out, pressing against Anya's temples, and suddenly the world exploded into color and sound and sensation. Anya gasped, trying to pull back, but the witch held firm. "Be still," Seraphine commanded, her voice echoing like it came from underwater. "I need to see." Images flashed through Anya's mind, memories that weren't hers. A ritual circle. Candles made from black wax. 2 infants lying side by side, one crying, one silent. A blade. Blood. Words in a language that hurt to hear. And then, pain. Anya screamed soundlessly as something inside her chest twisted, pulled, ripped. Seraphine released her, and Anya collapsed. Kalen caught her before she hit the ground, his arms banding around her protectively. "What the hell was that?" he snarled at the witch. "Confirmation," Seraphine said, unconcerned by his rage. She returned to her seat, pulling out a small leather journal and beginning to sketch symbols with quick, practiced strokes. The blood siphon ritual, as you suspected. But not a simple one. This was done by someone with considerable skill. "Who?" Kalen demanded, still holding Anya against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat racing, his wolf pushing close to the surface. "I don't know yet, but I can tell you when." Seraphine looked up, her strange eyes grave. The night they were born. Before either child took their first breath, the ritual was already in place. Whoever did this planned it for months, maybe years. They knew exactly what they were doing. Anya's mind reeled. Before she was born? Her parents had decided to steal her wolf before she'd even existed? "There's more," Seraphine continued, her voice dropping. "The wolf they transferred, it's not an ordinary wolf, Kalen. It's an ether wolf. Moon-blessed. Ancient bloodline. The kind of wolf that only appears once in a generation, if that." She fixed Anya with an intense stare. "Your wolf, child, is one of the most powerful creatures to walk this earth in the last 1,000 years. And someone was so afraid of what you'd become with her that they cut her out of you and gave her to your sister instead." The room fell silent. "Why?" Kalen finally asked. "Why not just kill Anya if they feared her power?" "Because you can't kill the vessel," Seraphine said. "The wolf is tied to Anya's bloodline, her DNA, her very existence. If Anya dies, the wolf dies. If the sister dies, the wolf returns to Anya automatically." She tapped her journal thoughtfully. "They created a prison, not a transfer. The sister is a living cage, holding the wolf hostage. As long as both girls live and the ritual remains intact, the wolf stays trapped between them, present in one body, but belonging to another." "Can you break it?" Kalen's voice was sharp with urgency. Seraphine's expression darkened. "Yes, but not without consequences." What consequences? The witch stood, moving to the window where dawn light streamed through the glass. The ritual has been in place for 20 years. The wolf and the sister have coexisted for 2 decades, neither fully bonded, but still connected. If we simply rip them apart, the shock could kill them both. The wolf would return to Anya too fast, too violently. Her body hasn't shifted in 20 years. The transformation would tear her apart. Anya felt Kalen's arms tighten around her. There has to be another way. There is, Seraphine said. But it requires going to the source. The place where the ritual was first performed. Sacred ground holds memory, Kalen. If we can find the exact location, I can use the residual magic to unravel the spell safely, piece by piece instead of all at once. She turned back to face them. Do you know where you were born, child? Anya shook her head. She knew nothing about her birth. No one had ever told her. It was just another thing they'd kept from her. Then we'll have to make them tell us, Kalen said, his voice going cold and lethal. There's something else, Seraphine interrupted. Something I saw in the memory walk that you need to know. She hesitated, which seemed unusual for someone so confident. The person who performed the ritual, they spoke words at the end. A prophecy or maybe a curse. I couldn't hear all of it, but I caught fragments. What fragments? Kalen demanded. Seraphine met his gaze. When the stolen wolf finds her true master, the moon will weep blood and the kingdoms will burn. She who is broken shall break the world, and from the ashes a new reign shall rise. She paused. Whoever did this ritual wasn't just stealing power, Kalen. They were trying to prevent an apocalypse. The words hung in the air like poison. Anya's hands trembled. She pulled back slightly from Kalen, shaking her head frantically. No, that couldn't be about her. She was nobody. Nothing. Just a mute girl who'd spent her life scrubbing floors and taking beatings. Hey! Kalen caught her face between his hands, forcing her to look at him. Whatever that prophecy means, whatever they were afraid of, it doesn't change anything. You're not a monster. You're not a threat. You're just a person who had something stolen from her, and we're going to get it back. Are we? Seraphine asked quietly. Even if that prophecy is true? Even if giving her back her wolf really does lead to kingdoms burning? Kalen's silver eyes blazed. Yes, because she deserves to be whole. And if the world has a problem with that, then the world can burn. 2 hours later, they stood in the fortress's courtyard where a convoy was being prepared. Kalen had made his decision. They were going to the Hemlock estate. They were going to find out where Anya was born. And if her family refused to cooperate, well, the king had ways of being persuasive. Anya wore leather pants and a warm tunic, clothes suitable for travel. Mira had braided her hair back from her face, and someone had given her boots that actually fit. She looked like a person who mattered. It still felt like a costume. You don't have to come, Kalen said, approaching her where she stood near the vehicles. You can stay here. Stay safe. I'll get the information and bring it back. Anya shook her head firmly. She'd spent 20 years letting other people make decisions for her. Not anymore. This was her life. Her wolf. Her stolen soul. She was going to face the people who'd taken it. Kalen studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But you stay close to me. And if things get dangerous, you run. Understood. Anya almost smiled. Run where? She had nowhere else to go. Kalen was the only safe thing in her world now. They were about to climb into the lead vehicle when a commotion erupted at the fortress gates. Shouting. Growling. The clash of weapons being drawn. Kalen's hand went immediately to the blade at his hip. What now? A warrior ran toward them, his face flushed. My king! Someone's at the gates. A female. She's demanding to see you. Who? She says her name is Celine Hemlock. The warrior's expression was disgusted. She says she's your mate. Anya's blood turned to ice. Kalen's face became a mask of cold fury. Let her in. I want to see this. Celine looked like she'd ridden through hell to get here. Her golden hair was tangled. Her expensive dress was torn and muddy. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands trembled as she was escorted into the courtyard by a ring of hostile warriors who looked like they wanted to rip her throat out. But when her eyes found Anya, standing beside the king, rage transformed her face into something ugly. "You," Celine spat, lunging forward. The warriors stopped her, holding her back. "You did this. You stole him. You always were jealous, always trying to take what was mine." "Enough." Kaylin's voice cracked like a whip. Celine froze, her eyes snapping to the king. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you're here before I have you removed from my territory. Permanently." Celine's expression shifted, tears suddenly spilling down her cheeks. The perfect damsel in distress. "Please, Your Majesty. I know you're angry. I know something seemed wrong at the ball, but I can explain." "I doubt it. It's the curse." Celine cried desperately. "My family has been cursed for generations. Dark magic that makes our wolves seem wrong to outsiders. But I'm not what you think. I'm not a thief. This is my wolf. She's always been mine." The tears came harder. "Please, just give me a chance. One chance to prove I'm worthy of you." Kaylin stared at her with all the warmth of winter ice. "Your wolf," he said slowly. "You're certain?" "Yes, of course." "Then shift." Celine blinked. "What?" "Shift," Kaylin repeated. "Right now. Show me this wolf that's supposedly yours." Confidence flickered across Celine's face. This was her moment. Her chance to prove her worth. She stepped back, closing her eyes, calling on the power that had made her the pride of her pack. Golden light began to shimmer across her skin. Her body started to shift, bones cracking and reforming. The magnificent golden wolf began to emerge. And then it stopped. Celine's eyes snapped open in panic. The shift reversed, leaving her human and gasping. I don't understand." She was right there. "I felt her." "Try again," Kaylin commanded. Celine tried. Anya watched as her sister struggled, sweat beading on her forehead, her entire body shaking with effort. The golden light flickered and died. Flickered and died. The wolf wouldn't come. "What did you do?" Celine screamed at Anya. "What did you do to me, you little parasite?" "She did nothing." Seraphine's voice cut through the courtyard as the witch emerged from the fortress. "But I did." She held up a small vial filled with dark liquid. "Distance suppression potion. The moment you crossed into the king's territory, it activated, temporarily severing the stolen bond between you and the wolf you've been wearing like a pretty dress." Celine's face went white. No, that's not. She's mine. She's always been mine." "Liar," Kaylin said softly, and the word carried such finality that Celine stumbled back. "Your wolf has been trying to return to her true master since the moment I took Anya from your estate. I've had reports she's been fighting you, hasn't she? Refusing to shift properly. Making you weak." Celine's silence was answer enough. Kaylin turned to his warriors. "Take her to the holding cells. She's not to leave until I decide what to do with her." "No," Celine shrieked as they grabbed her arms. "You can't do this. I'm the blessed one. I'm the perfect daughter. She's nothing. Nothing." But Anya wasn't listening anymore. Because something inside her chest was stirring. Something that had been sleeping for 20 years was beginning to wake. And when Anya looked down at her hands, she saw them glowing with soft, silver light. The light faded as quickly as it had appeared, but everyone had seen it. Anya stared at her hands, her heart hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. That had been real. That warmth spreading through her veins, that electric tingle under her skin, that had been her wolf. Reaching for her. Trying to come home. "Impossible," Celine breathed, her voice cracking. She'd stopped struggling against the warriors, her face a mask of dawning horror. "No, you can't. You're empty. You've always been empty. Get her out of my sight," Kaylin snarled. The warriors dragged Celine away, her screams echoing off the fortress walls. But Anya couldn't move. She stood frozen in the courtyard, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. Seraphine approached slowly, those color-shifting eyes bright with interest. "May I?" She gestured to Anya's hands. Anya nodded, still too shocked to do much else. The witch took Anya's hands in hers, turning them over, studying the palms and fingers with clinical precision. "Fascinating," she murmured. "The bond is destabilizing faster than I anticipated. The wolf recognizes her true master is near. She's fighting to return. Is that dangerous?" Kaylin demanded, moving to Anya's other side protectively. "Potentially." Seraphine released Anya's hands. The further the sister gets from Anya, the weaker the suppression becomes. But we're not ready for a full return. If the wolf comes back now, without the proper ritual to guide her. She trailed off meaningfully. "Anya dies," Kaylin finished, his voice flat. "Or worse. The wolf could tear her apart from the inside, trying to reclaim what's hers." Seraphine's expression grew grave. "We need to find that birthplace. Soon. Before the wolf takes matters into her own hands." A horn sounded from the watchtower, 3 sharp blasts that sent every warrior in the courtyard into immediate alert. Weapons were drawn. Wolves began to shift. The air itself seemed to tighten with tension. Thane appeared at a run, his scarred face grim. "My king, we have visitors." "A lot of them." "Who?" "The Hemlock Pack. Duke Hemlock is demanding an audience. He's brought 50 warriors and—" Thane's expression darkened. "The High Council Arbiter." Kaylin's curse was vicious and creative. "Of course he did. He went crying to the council." "What's the High Council?" Anya gestured to Kaylin, her hands moving in the sign language she'd taught herself. "The Wolf Authority that oversees disputes between packs," Kaylin explained, his jaw tight. "They have the power to overrule even a king if they believe laws have been broken." His silver eyes met hers. "Your father is claiming I kidnapped you. That I stole you from your family without legal right." Anya's hands moved rapidly. "I'm not a child. I'm 20 years old. It doesn't matter. In wolf law, unmated females belong to their pack until they're formally claimed by a mate or choose to leave of their own free will." Kaylin's expression was murderous. "And since you can't speak to verify your choice." The trap crystallized in Anya's mind. They'd stolen her voice. Now they were using that theft to steal her freedom. "Let them in," Kaylin said coldly. "All of them. We'll handle this publicly." "My king," Thane started. "I said let them in." Kaylin's tone left no room for argument. He looked down at Anya, his expression softening slightly. "Stay close to me. Don't let them touch you. And whatever happens, remember, you're under my protection now. They can't take you unless you choose to go with them." Anya nodded, though fear coiled in her stomach like a living thing. She'd spent 20 years under Duke Hemlock's control. The thought of facing him again made her want to run and hide in the darkest corner she could find. But she'd done enough hiding. The main hall of the Iron Citadel was designed for war councils and political negotiations. It was vast, cold, and deliberately intimidating, all dark stone and weapons mounted on the walls, with Kaylin's throne rising on a dais at the far end like a judge's seat. Anya stood beside the throne, Kaylin's hand resting possessively on her lower back. Seraphine stood on his other side, her witch's power humming just below the surface. The king's elite warriors lined the walls, silent, deadly, and clearly hoping someone would give them an excuse to fight. The doors opened. Duke Hemlock entered first, looking every inch the powerful nobleman, despite the rage burning in his eyes. Duchess Alara followed, her beautiful face carefully arranged into an expression of maternal concern. Behind them came 50 Hemlock warriors, all battle-ready, all looking at Anya like she was a criminal who'd escaped justice. And at the end of the procession, an ancient male in council robes, the Arbiter, whose job was to enforce wolf law across all territories. The Duke stopped in the center of the hall, his gaze locked on Anya with such hatred that she instinctively pressed closer to Kaylin. "Your Majesty," the the Arbiter said, his voice surprisingly strong for someone who looked like he might crumble to dust at any moment. I am Arbiter Matthias of the High Council. I come on behalf of Duke Hemlock, who has made serious accusations against you. Has he? Kalen's tone was bored. Do tell. You kidnapped my daughter, Duke Hemlock snarled, his composure cracking. You took her from our home without permission, without legal right. I rescued her from abuse, Kalen interrupted smoothly. There's a difference. Lies. The Duchess's voice rang out. We loved that girl. We fed her, clothed her, gave her a home when she was born defective. You kept her as a slave, Seraphine cut in, her voice sharp as a blade. I've seen the scars. The burn marks. The places where shackles rubbed her skin raw over years of repeated use. That's not love, Duchess. That's torture. She needed discipline, the Duke roared. She was uncontrollable, violent, destructive. She's mute, Kalen said flatly. And weighs maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. Exactly how violent could she be? The Arbiter raised his hand, calling for silence. Be that as it may, Your Majesty, Wolf law is clear. An unmated female belongs to her birth pack until she formally chooses to leave. Since the girl cannot speak. He turned his ancient eyes to Anya. We cannot verify her choice. Therefore, by law, she must be returned to her family. Anya's blood turned to ice. No, Kalen said, the single word vibrating with barely leashed fury. Your Majesty, you cannot simply ignore the law because it displeases you. Watch me. The temperature in the hall dropped. Kalen's power flooded the space, pressing down on everyone like a physical weight. Warriors stumbled. The Duchess went pale. Even the ancient Arbiter took an involuntary step back. This female, Kalen said, his voice dropping to that dangerous purr that meant someone was about to die, came to me broken, starved, and covered in scars. She came to me after 20 years of abuse at the hands of the people now demanding I return her to their care. He stood, and even Anya felt the urge to kneel before the power radiating from him. And you expect me to just hand her back? To send her home to the people who destroyed her? The law, the Arbiter tried again, can go to hell. Kalen. Seraphine's hand touched his arm lightly, a warning. Defying the council openly will give them cause to declare war on your territory. Then let them try. Wait. A new voice rang out from the back of the Hemlock delegation. A figure pushed through the warriors, and Anya's heart stopped. It was an old woman, bent with age, wearing the simple robes of a pack healer. Anya recognized her, grandmother Iris, the only person in the Hemlock household who'd ever shown her a scrap of kindness. Who'd snuck her food sometimes. Who'd healed her wounds when no one else cared if she lived or died. Grandmother, get back, the Duke started, but Iris ignored him. She walked straight across the hall, her steps slow but determined, until she stood before Kalen's throne. Then she did something that made the entire room gasp. She bowed to Anya. Not to the king. To Anya. Forgive an old woman, Iris said, her voice wavering with age and emotion. I should have spoken long ago. Should have stopped this before it went so far. She straightened as much as her bent spine would allow, turning to face the Arbiter. That girl cannot be returned to the Hemlock pack. By law, she doesn't belong to them. What are you talking about? The Duke demanded, his face going red. She's our daughter. She's not. Iris's words fell like stones. Anya was never yours, Marcus. She was never Alara's. You stole her. The hall exploded into chaos. Silence. The Arbiter's power rang out, forcing everyone to stillness. He turned to Iris, his ancient eyes sharp. You claim this child was stolen? You have proof. I was there the night she was born, Iris said quietly. I delivered both babies, Celine and Anya. But Anya wasn't Alara's child. She was the daughter of another female. A female who died in childbirth in the forest, alone and afraid. The old woman's eyes filled with tears. Marcus found her while hunting. Found the female dying and the baby crying beside her. And he saw an opportunity. You're lying, the Duchess shrieked. You senile old fool. His mate had just given birth to one daughter, Iris continued, speaking over the Duchess's rage. But he wanted insurance. Wanted a spare in case something happened to his heir. So he took the orphan baby, brought her home, claimed she was a twin. Her gaze found Anya. But when he realized she had no wolf, or seemed to have no wolf, he didn't need her anymore. She became disposable. Anya couldn't breathe. She wasn't even hemlock blood? She was just what? A stray they'd picked up and discarded when she didn't serve their purposes? Do you have any proof of this claim? The arbiter demanded. The mother wore a pendant, Iris said. Silver, with a moonstone. Engraved with a family crest I didn't recognize. Marcus took it. Said he'd keep it in case anyone came looking for the baby. She turned to the Duke, her expression hard. It's in your study. Top drawer of your desk. Behind the false bottom. The Duke's face went from red to white. I don't know what you're talking about. Check his study, Kaelin commanded, gesturing to Thane. Send riders now. If that pendant exists, bring it back. You can't just. This is my private property, the Duke sputtered. You brought council law into this, Kaelin said coldly. So, let's follow it. If Anya isn't your blood daughter, you have no legal claim to her. She doesn't belong to your pack. She never did. His hand found Anya's, squeezing gently. Which means she's free to choose where she belongs. Even if this is true, the arbiter said slowly, we still have the problem of verification. The girl cannot speak. She cannot formally declare her choice. Then we'll find another way, Seraphine said. She moved to stand in front of Anya, her strange eyes gentle. There are old magics, child. Blood truths. Ways to hear what the voiceless wish to say. She pulled out a small crystal vial from her robes. This is heart water, water blessed under a full moon and mixed with truth serum. If you drink it, and I ask you a question, your body will answer even if your voice cannot. A glow for yes. Darkness for no. She held it out. Will you trust me? Anya looked at Kaelin. He nodded once. Your choice. Always your choice. Anya took the vial with shaking hands and drank. The liquid tasted like starlight and honey. It slid down her throat and settled in her chest, warm and waiting. Seraphine placed her hands on Anya's shoulders. Anya, do you wish to return to the Hemlock Pack? The answer came instantly, darkness so complete it was like someone had extinguished the sun. The hall gasped. Do you wish to remain with Alpha King Kaelin? Light exploded from Anya's chest, so bright several people had to shield their eyes. Pure, radiant, undeniable. The girl has spoken, the arbiter said, and even he sounded impressed. By her own will, witnessed by council authority, she chooses the king. He turned to the Duke and Duchess. If the pendant is found and proves Grandmother Iris's testimony, you will be charged with child theft and abuse. The council will rule on your punishment. No, the Duke whispered, his empire crumbling around him. No, this can't. But Kaelin wasn't listening anymore. He pulled Anya into his arms, holding her close, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Anya felt something like safety. Get out of my territory, Kaelin said to the Hemlocks, his voice lethal. And if you ever come near her again, I'll kill you. That's not a threat. It's a promise. The Duke stared at Anya with such pure hatred that she knew, even if she survived getting her wolf back, even if she somehow became whole again, the Hemlocks would never stop trying to destroy her. Because she'd done the unforgivable. She'd escaped. And worse, she'd been chosen by a king while their perfect daughter rotted in a cell. They'd make her pay for that. Eventually. But as Kaelin led her from the hall, his arm wrapped protectively around her waist, Anya decided she didn't care. Let them try. She had a king on her side now. And a wolf that was fighting to come home. The moon was full that night, hanging low and heavy over the iron citadel like a watchful eye. Anya stood on the balcony outside Kaelin's chambers, wrapped in a thick fur against the cold. Below, the fortress was quiet, warriors had retired for the night. The chaos of the day's confrontation finally settled into uneasy peace. The Hemlocks were gone, escorted to the border under heavy guard. Celine remained in the cells. And Anya. Anya was trying to understand who she was. Not a Hemlock. Not even related to the family that had tortured her for 20 years. She was an orphan. A stray. A girl with no name, no pack, no history beyond the scars on her skin. You're thinking too loud. Anya turned to find Kalen emerging onto the balcony, 2 steaming mugs in his hands. He offered her one tea, from the smell of it, mixed with honey and something else that warmed her from the inside out. He leaned against the railing beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Thane's riders found the pendant, he said quietly. Silver moonstone, just like Iris described. Engraved with a crest we're still trying to identify. He glanced at her. But it proved she was telling the truth. You were never theirs. Anya sipped her tea, the liquid scalding her throat in a way that felt grounding. Real. She didn't know how to feel about this revelation. Should she be relieved? Angry? Sad? She felt nothing. Just numb. I know what you're doing, Kalen said, his voice soft. You're trying to process 20 years of lies all at once. Trying to figure out who you are now that everything you thought you knew has been ripped away. He turned to face her fully. But can I tell you what I see when I look at you? Anya met his gaze, those silver eyes reflecting moonlight like mirrors. I see someone who survived, Kalen said simply. Someone who endured hell and didn't break. Someone who fed crows when she was starving herself. Someone who read stolen books by candlelight because learning mattered more than sleep. Someone who got back up every single time they knocked her down. His hand reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I see someone stronger than anyone who hurt her. And I see someone who deserves to know what it feels like to be chosen. Not because you're useful. Not because you serve a purpose. But because you matter. Anya's eyes burned. She set down her tea with shaking hands and signed rapidly. Why? Why do you care what happens to me? Kalen was quiet for a long moment, watching the moon. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with something Anya couldn't quite name. I told you I've killed a lot of people, he said. That I've conquered kingdoms and left death in my wake. What I didn't tell you is why. He turned to her, and there was pain in his eyes, old, deep, the kind that never really healed. I had a sister once. Younger than me. Sweet, gentle, everything I wasn't. Our father was a brutal man who believed power came from cruelty. He broke her slowly, piece by piece, while I was away fighting his wars. Anya's breath caught. By the time I came home, she was gone, Kalen continued, his jaw tight. Not dead, worse. Hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything that made her who she was and left behind an empty shell that breathed and ate but never really lived. His hands clenched on the railing. I killed my father that night. Took his throne. Spent the next decade trying to find healers, witches, anyone who could bring her back. But she was too far gone. She died 3 years ago, still hollow, still broken. Tears streamed down Anya's face. When I saw you in that ballroom, Kalen said, his voice rough, hiding in the shadows, wearing your sister's cast-off cruelty like it was normal, I saw her. I saw what she might have been if someone had pulled her out sooner. If someone had cared enough to fight for her. He reached out, cupping Anya's face in his large hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I can't save my sister. But I can save you. And maybe that's selfish. Maybe I'm doing this for me as much as for you. But I don't care. You deserve someone in your corner, Anya. Someone who'll burn the world down before they let anyone hurt you again. Anya's hands moved without thinking, reaching up to cover his, pressing his palms harder against her cheeks. For the first time in her life, someone saw her pain and didn't look away. Didn't tell her to be stronger, to endure, to accept her fate. Kalen saw her broken pieces and wanted to help her put them back together. I'm not good at this, Kalen admitted, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Connection. Emotions. Being anything other than a weapon. But with you. He trailed off, searching for words. With you, I want to try. Want to be something more than the Winter King who kills everything he touches. Anya's hands moved in sign language, slow and deliberate. You don't kill everything. You saved Mira. You saved those other girls. You saved me. Not yet, Kaylin said quietly. You're not saved yet. Not until we get your wolf back. Not until you're whole. Anya shook her head. She pointed to her chest, then to him, then made a gesture that meant home. Kaylin's expression cracked, something vulnerable bleeding through. You feel like home to me too, he whispered. And that terrifies me. Because everyone I've ever loved has been destroyed. By my father. By my enemies. By me. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. I don't want to destroy you, Anya. But I don't know how to keep you safe from what's coming. What's coming? Anya signed against his chest. War, Kaylin said simply. The council won't let this go. Your family won't let this go. And that prophecy Seraphine mentioned, about you breaking the world, someone out there believes it's true. Believes you're dangerous enough to justify stealing your soul before you were even born. He pulled back slightly, his silver eyes intense. When we get your wolf back, when you shift for the first time and the world sees what you really are, everything is going to change. And I need to know you're ready for that. Anya wasn't sure she'd ever be ready. But she nodded anyway. Because what choice did she have? Live hollow forever or risk everything for a chance to be whole? We leave at dawn, Kaylin said. Iris told us where you were born, a sacred grove 3 days' ride from here. The moon's hollow, they call it. A place where the veil between worlds is thin. Where the moon goddess herself is said to walk during the full moon. His thumb traced her jawline gently. Seraphine can perform the reversal there. Can bring your wolf home safely. And Celine? Anya signed. What happens to her? She comes with us, Kaylin said grimly. The ritual requires both of you present. The wolf needs to be released from her cage willingly, not ripped out by force. His expression darkened. But I promise you this, she won't hurt you again. I'll make sure of it. Anya wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this would all work out. But fear coiled in her stomach like a living thing. What if getting her wolf back killed her? What if the prophecy was true and she really was meant to destroy everything? What if she became the monster they'd always said she was? Hey! Kaylin's voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. Stay with me. Right here. Right now. He took her hands in his, warming them with his body heat. Whatever happens in that grove, whatever you become when your wolf comes home, I'm not going anywhere. You understand? I chose you, Anya. The broken girl with scars and silence. And I'll choose you again when you're whole. I'll choose you if you become the most powerful wolf in existence. I'll choose you if that prophecy comes true and kingdoms really do burn. His grip tightened. You're mine. And I protect what's mine. The word mine should have scared her. Should have felt like possession, like ownership, like all the times the Hemlocks had reminded her she was property. But coming from Kaylin, it felt different. It felt like belonging. Anya leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. His arms wrapped around her immediately, holding her close, and for the first time in 20 years, Anya let herself feel safe. Sleep with me tonight, Kaylin said quietly. Not a demand, a request. Not like that. Just sleep. Let me hold you. Let me keep the nightmares away. Anya pulled back enough to look at him, questions in her eyes. I know you have them, Kaylin said. I hear you crying in your sleep. Fighting invisible enemies. Whimpering like you're being hurt. His expression was pained. Let me help. Let me show you what it feels like to sleep without fear. Every instinct told Anya to refuse. To keep her distance. To protect herself from the inevitable moment when this kindness would be revealed as a trap. But she was so tired of being afraid. So tired of sleeping alone, jolting awake from nightmares with no one to tell her she was safe. So tired of surviving instead of living. Slowly, Anya nodded. Kaylin's bed was enormous, covered in furs and thick blankets that smelled like pine and winter and him. Anya climbed in wearing one of his shirts, soft, warm, hanging to her knees, while Kaylin stripped down to loose pants and nothing else. She tried not to stare at the scars covering his body, at the evidence of a lifetime spent fighting, bleeding, surviving. He was a patchwork of violence, just like her. Maybe that's why she felt safe with him, because he understood what it meant to wear your pain on your skin. Kaylin slid into bed beside her, immediately pulling her close until her back was pressed against his chest, his arm wrapped around her waist. Too much, he murmured against her hair. Anya shook her head. It wasn't too much. It was perfect. Tell me something, Kaylin said quietly, his breath warm against her neck. Something you dreamed about when you were locked in that closet. Something that kept you going. Anya thought for a moment, then tapped his arm. When he held his hand up, she traced letters against his palm. Freedom. Freedom, Kaylin repeated. What does freedom look like to you? Anya traced more letters. Choice. Choice, Kaylin said softly. The right to decide who you are. Where you go. What you become. His arm tightened around her. You'll have that. I promise. Once your wolf comes home, once you're strong enough to stand on your own, you'll have every choice in the world. Even if that choice is to leave me. Anya's hand found his, their fingers threading together. She brought his hand to her lips and kissed his scarred knuckles gently. Not leaving, she traced against his palm. Not yet, Kaylin agreed. But someday you might want to. Might realize you don't need a broken king playing hero. Anya twisted in his arms until she faced him, her eyes fierce. Her hands moved rapidly. You're not broken. You're surviving. Like me. Kaylin stared at her for a long moment, something raw and vulnerable in his expression. Then he leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead, soft, reverent, like she was something precious. Sleep, he whispered. I'll keep watch. And for the first time in 20 years, Anya slept without nightmares. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. The moon's hollow lived up to its name. 3 days of hard riding had brought them to a place that felt like stepping through a tear in reality itself. The forest opened into a perfect circle, maybe 100 feet across, where no trees grew. The ground was covered in silvery moss that glowed faintly in the pre-dawn light, and at the center stood a ring of ancient stones, each one carved with runes so old even Seraphine couldn't fully translate them. The air tasted like magic. Like moonlight given form. Anya stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart hammering against her ribs. This was it. The place where she'd been born. The place where her wolf had been stolen. And if Seraphine was right, the place where she'd finally become whole again. Or die trying. The energy here is incredible, Seraphine murmured, moving through the clearing with her hands outstretched, reading invisible currents. This isn't just sacred ground. This is a nexus point where the mortal world and the spirit realm touch. The perfect place for a ritual of this magnitude. She turned to Kaylin, her expression grave. But it also means the ritual will be visible. Any creature with magic sensitivity within 50 miles will feel it happening. Let them feel it, Kaylin said coldly. His warriors had formed a perimeter around the clearing, weapons drawn, ready for anything. Let the whole damn world know she's taking back what's hers. From the center of the camp, Celine laughed, bitter and broken. She sat bound in silver chains that prevented shifting, her once perfect appearance now haggard and wild. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her golden hair hung in tangles. The golden wolf's absence had left her weak, almost human. You're all fools, Celine spat, her voice hoarse. You think this is going to be some triumphant moment? Some fairy tale where the broken girl gets her happy ending? She fixed Anya with a gaze full of venom. Do you know why they gave me your wolf, sister? Do you know what you really are? Silence her, Kaylin commanded, but Seraphine raised a hand. No. Let her speak. The witch's eyes were sharp. If she knows something about the ritual, about why it was done, we need to hear it. Celine's smile was vicious. Mother told me. Right before you dragged me from the estate. Told me everything in case I needed leverage. She leaned forward despite her chains. You're not just some random orphan they found in the woods, Anya. Your mother was Mora Ashenfell, the last surviving member of the moon's bloodline. The royal bloodline blessed by the goddess herself. The clearing went silent. Moon's blood, Seraphine breathed, her face going pale. That's impossible. That line died out centuries ago. Hunted to extinction because their power was too great, too dangerous. Not extinct, Celine interrupted. Just hiding. Your mother ran when she was pregnant with you, trying to escape the hunters who wanted to end the bloodline forever. She made it to Hemlock territory before the birth killed her. Celine's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. And when my father found you, crying beside your dead mother, he recognized the crest on her pendant. Recognized what you were. What you'd become if you ever got your wolf. What would she become? Kalen demanded, his hand moving to rest on Anya's shoulder protectively. A weapon, Celine said simply. The moon's bloodline doesn't produce normal wolves. They produce ether wolves, creatures of pure lunar magic. Wolves that can manipulate time, space, reality itself. Wolves that don't just shift into animal form, but can reshape the world around them. She laughed again, the sound cracked and desperate. The last ether wolf destroyed 3 kingdoms before the other packs finally managed to kill her. Tens of thousands dead. Cities burned to ash. All because one wolf decided the world should bend to her will. Anya felt the blood drain from her face. No, that couldn't be right. She wasn't some world-ending threat. She was just. My father knew, Celine continued, her voice rising. Knew that if you ever bonded with your wolf, you'd become unstoppable. Unkillable. A force of nature that no army could stand against. So he made a choice. He performed the blood siphon ritual, stole your wolf before you could bond with her, and gave her to me, someone who could never fully unlock her power because the wolf knew I wasn't her true master. She stared at Anya with something that might have been pity. He didn't do it to be cruel, sister. He did it to save the world from you. That's enough, Kalen snarled, but the damage was done. Anya stumbled backward, her mind reeling. A weapon. A destroyer. A creature so dangerous that her own wolf had been ripped from her soul to prevent her from becoming a monster. The prophecy suddenly made horrible sense. She who is broken shall break the world. Anya, look at me. Kalen caught her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. This doesn't change anything. You're not responsible for what some ancestor did centuries ago. You're not a monster. She will be, Celine said softly, and there was something almost like genuine fear in her voice now. The moment that wolf bonds with her, the moment she shifts for the first time, she'll feel the power. All that rage, all that pain, 20 years of suffering and abuse, it'll all have an outlet. And she won't be able to control it. She looked at Seraphine. You know I'm right. You've studied the ancient texts. You know what happens when an ether wolf bonds with someone who's been traumatized, who's been broken. Seraphine's silence was damning. Tell them, Celine pressed. Tell them what the histories say. The witch's jaw tightened. The histories say that ether wolves are empaths. They feel their master's emotions as their own. And if the master has been severely traumatized, she trailed off, her gaze finding Anya. The wolf can become unstable. Can lash out at anything perceived as a threat. Can destroy indiscriminately if the pain is too great. So you're saying she's a danger, Kalen said flatly. That we should just leave her broken to protect everyone else. I'm saying we need to be careful, Seraphine replied. The ritual itself is dangerous enough. But the bonding, that moment when Anya and her wolf become one, that's when things could go very wrong. Then we don't do it, Thane said from the perimeter. Several warriors nodded in agreement. We find another way. Keep the wolf dormant until... Until what? Anya's hands moved sharply, her signs angry and desperate. Until I die hollow? Until you're sure I won't break your precious world? Anya, Kalen started, but she pulled away from him. She was shaking with rage now, 20 years of suppressed anger finally finding its voice in movement. Her hands flew through signs so fast some of them were barely legible. I didn't ask to be born dangerous. Didn't ask to be stolen from. Didn't ask to spend my life being beaten and starved and treated like I was nothing. She pointed at Celine. She got to have my wolf. My power. My life. And now you're saying I should just accept staying empty because I might be too broken to handle getting my own soul back? No one is saying that, Seraphine began. Yes, you are. Anya's signs were vicious now. You're saying I'm too damaged, too traumatized, too dangerous. Just like they always said. She spun to face Kaylin, and there were tears streaming down her face. You said I had a choice. You promised me freedom. So let me choose. Let me decide if I want my wolf back, even if it kills me. Even if it turns me into the monster everyone thinks I'll become. The clearing fell silent except for the wind moving through the trees. Kaylin stared at her, his expression torn between protection and respect. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough. If we do this, if we give you back your wolf and something goes wrong, I'll have to stop you. You understand that? If you lose control, if you become a threat to innocent people, I'll have to put you down. His silver eyes were anguished. I don't want to. It'll destroy me. But I won't let you hurt people who don't deserve it. Anya met his gaze steadily and nodded. She understood. And she accepted it. Because even the risk of death, even the risk of becoming everything they feared, was better than living one more day as half a person. All right, Seraphine said quietly. Then we proceed. But we do it carefully. Anya, you'll need to stay in the center of the stone circle. The runes will help contain the power surge during the initial bonding. Celine, you'll kneel opposite her. The wolf will be drawn from you back to her true master, but it needs to happen gradually or you'll both die. And if I refuse? Celine asked, though there was no real defiance left in her voice. Then you die anyway when the wolf tears herself free, Seraphine said bluntly. At least this way, you might survive. Celine's bitter laugh echoed through the clearing. Some choice. The ritual began as the sun crested the horizon. Anya knelt in the center of the stone circle, wearing only a simple white shift. Her hands were pressed flat against the glowing moss, her heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Around her, the ancient runes carved into the standing stones began to pulse with silver light. Across from her, Celine knelt in her chains, her face a mask of terror and resignation. Seraphine stood between them, her hands raised, chanting in a language that hurt Anya's ears to hear. The air grew thick with power. The temperature dropped until Anya could see her breath misting in front of her face. And then she felt it. Something stirring deep inside her chest. Something that had been sleeping for 20 years, caged and suppressed and desperate for freedom. Her wolf. The sensation was indescribable, like feeling a part of herself she hadn't known was missing suddenly slot back into place. Warmth flooded through her veins. Power buzzed under her skin. And with it came emotions so intense she thought they might tear her apart. Rage. At the years stolen from her. At the family who'd tortured her. At a world that had looked at her broken pieces and decided she deserved to stay that way. Pain. Every beating. Every burn. Every moment she'd been made to feel like she was nothing, like she was less than human, like her suffering didn't matter. Loneliness. 20 years of being invisible. Of having no one. Of being so utterly, completely alone that she'd forgotten what connection felt like. The wolf felt it all. Absorbed it all. And roared. Anya's back arched as light exploded from her chest, not golden like Celine's wolf, but pure silver white, blinding and beautiful and terrible. The power surge sent Seraphine stumbling backward. The runes on the stones blazed so bright several warriors had to shield their eyes. Across from her, Celine screamed as the golden wolf was ripped from her body, pulled by an invisible force toward its true master. The wolf spirit, visible now as a massive creature made of pure light, fought against the transfer, desperate to stay with the only host it had known for 2 decades. But the pull was too strong, the bond too ancient. The wolf slammed into Anya like a freight train, and she screamed soundlessly as 20 years of stolen power came flooding home all at once. Too much. It was too much. Anya. Kalen's voice cut through the chaos. Stay with me. Don't let it consume you. But Anya could barely hear him over the roaring in her ears, the fire in her veins, the overwhelming sensation of being filled to bursting with power she had no idea how to control. The wolf was awake. The wolf was angry. And the wolf wanted blood. Anya felt her body beginning to shift, bones cracking, muscles tearing and reforming, her consciousness fracturing as human and wolf tried to merge after being separated for so long. The last thing she saw before the transformation took her completely was Kalen's face, his expression torn between wonder and fear. And then the world exploded into silver light and Anya was gone. In her place stood something that hadn't walked the earth in centuries. An ether wolf. And she was magnificent. The wolf that rose from the silver light was unlike anything the world had seen in generations. She stood nearly 7 feet tall at the shoulder, twice the size of a normal wolf, her body rippling with muscle and pure lunar magic. Her fur was white as fresh snow, but it didn't just reflect light, it seemed to generate it, each strand glowing with an inner radiance that made her appear as if she'd been carved from moonlight itself. Her eyes were no longer Anya's soft brown, but blazing silver, ancient and knowing and absolutely feral. This wasn't just a wolf. This was a force of nature given form. The ether wolf threw back her head and howled, and the sound shattered reality itself. The standing stones cracked. The moss beneath her paws turned to ice. The very air seemed to bend and warp around her, time itself stuttering like a broken heartbeat. Warriors dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by the sheer pressure of her presence. Even Kalen, the Winter King who'd never bowed to anyone, felt his wolf whimper and lower its head in instinctive submission. Celine collapsed completely, her body emptied of the power that had sustained her for 20 years. She lay gasping on the ground, suddenly mortal, suddenly weak, finally understanding what she'd been wearing like a costume for 2 decades. The ether wolf's blazing gaze swept across the clearing, and everyone who met those eyes felt the weight of her fury. This creature had been caged for 20 years. Starved. Beaten. Denied her birthright. And now she was free. And she was looking for something to destroy. Anya. Kalen's voice cut through the chaos, steady and strong despite the fear Anya could smell rolling off him. I know you're in there. I know you can hear me. The wolf's massive head swung toward him, lips pulling back from teeth that could tear through steel. A growl rumbled from her chest, deep, primal, promising violence. But Kalen didn't run, didn't reach for his weapon. He simply stood there, hands open and empty, meeting those blazing silver eyes without flinching. I see you, he said quietly. Not the monster. Not the weapon. I see Anya. The girl who fed crows when she was starving. The girl who read stolen books by candlelight. The girl who survived 20 years of hell and never lost the ability to be kind. He took a step closer, and the wolf's growl intensified. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But don't let their cruelty turn you into what they feared. Don't let them win by becoming the monster they tried to create. The ether wolf snarled, power crackling across her fur like lightning. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Frost spread across the ground in intricate patterns. Your Majesty, get back. Thane shouted, moving forward with his blade drawn. She's not in control. Stand down. Kalen roared, his alpha command freezing every warrior in place. His eyes never left the wolf. Anya, I made you a promise. Do you remember? The wolf went still, those ancient eyes boring into him. I promised I would choose you, Kalen said softly. Broken or whole. Weak or powerful. Human or wolf. He took another step, close enough now that the wolf could kill him with a single swipe of her massive paw. I choose you, Anya. Right now. This moment. Even knowing what you could do. Even knowing you could tear me apart without breaking a sweat. He held out his hand, palm up, offering. So choose me back. Choose to be more than their fear. Choose to be the person you've always been underneath the scars and the silence. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved. The entire clearing held its breath, waiting to see if the king would die for his faith in a broken girl. Then something shifted in those silver eyes. The feral rage flickered, replaced by something else. Something human. Recognition. The ether wolf took a step forward, lowering her massive head until her muzzle nearly touched Kaylin's outstretched hand. Her breath was visible in the frozen air, each exhale like smoke from a dragon's maw. Slowly, carefully, Kaylin reached up and touched her fur. It was like touching starlight, warm and cold at once, solid but somehow ethereal. The wolf closed her eyes, and a sound rumbled from her chest that was almost like a purr. There you are, Kaylin whispered, his other hand coming up to stroke along the wolf's massive jaw. I knew you were still in there. The ether wolf pressed against him, her size forcing Kaylin to brace himself or be knocked over. And then, impossibly, she began to shrink. The light dimmed. The crushing pressure eased. The massive form condensed, collapsing down and down until where the 7-foot monster had stood, a young woman knelt in the silvery moss, naked and shaking and very, very human. Anya. She looked up at Kaylin with eyes that were still silver, still touched by the wolf's magic, but unmistakably her own. And then she opened her mouth, and sound came out. Raw and unused and beautiful beyond measure. Kaylin. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but it was there. Real. Hers. I can speak. The king dropped to his knees beside her, pulling off his cloak and wrapping it around her trembling body. You can, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Your wolf gave you back your voice. I felt her, Anya whispered, tears streaming down her face. Everything. All her rage. All her pain. She wanted to kill them all. Wanted to make them pay for what they did to us. Her hands clutched at the cloak, at Kaylin, grounding herself. I almost let go and let her destroy everything. But you didn't, Kaylin said firmly. You held on. You chose control. Because of you. Anya's silver eyes met his. Because you saw me. Even when I was a monster, you saw me. Kaylin pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she shook apart in his embrace. Always, he murmured into her hair. I'll always see you. Around them, the clearing slowly came back to life. Warriors picked themselves up, checking for injuries. Seraphine approached cautiously, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. That was. The witch seemed at a loss for words. I've read about ether wolves. Studied the ancient texts. But seeing one in person. She shook her head. You're more powerful than any of us imagined, child. What you just did, pulling back from that rage, maintaining your humanity while bonded to a wolf that ancient and powerful, that should have been impossible. Is it over? Anya asked, her new voice still trembling. Is the ritual complete? Almost. Seraphine gestured to where Celine still lay, barely conscious. The wolf has returned to you. The bond is formed. But there's one final piece. She pulled out a small silver knife. The blood siphon ritual carved marks into both of you, magical scars that connect you. Those need to be severed completely, or the bond could try to reestablish itself. What do you need us to do? Kaylin asked, still holding Anya protectively. A simple blood ritual. I cut the mark on Anya's spine, then the corresponding mark on Celine. The connection breaks. The spell ends permanently. Seraphine's expression grew serious. But I need to warn you, when the connection breaks, Celine will feel every moment of pain she caused you, Anya. Every beating. Every burn. Every humiliation. It's the spell's way of balancing the scales. Of making sure the thief understands exactly what she stole. Anya looked across the clearing to where Celine lay, broken and hollow and so very small without the golden wolf's power sustaining her. Part of Anya, the part that had spent 20 years being hurt, wanted Celine to suffer, wanted her to feel everything, wanted revenge. But another part, the part that Kaelin had seen and chosen, remembered the look on Celine's face when the truth came out. The fear. The realization that she'd been just as much a victim of their parents' choices as Anya had been. Do it, Anya said quietly. But make it quick. She doesn't need to suffer more than necessary. Seraphine's eyebrows rose slightly, surprised by the mercy. But she nodded and moved to begin the final ritual. The cuts were small, just enough to draw blood and break the magical connection. Anya felt a sharp sting between her shoulder blades, then a sensation like something snapping inside her chest. The invisible tether that had connected her to Celine for 20 years finally severed. She was free. Completely, utterly free. Across the clearing, Celine screamed. Her body convulsed as 20 years of Anya's pain flooded into her all at once, a lifetime of suffering compressed into a single moment of absolute agony. She wailed, sobbing, begging for it to stop, her perfect face twisted with torment. It lasted maybe 30 seconds. But Anya knew those 30 seconds would haunt Celine for the rest of her life. When it was over, Celine lay gasping and broken, staring at Anya with new eyes. Eyes that finally understood. "I'm sorry," Celine whispered, and for the first time, it sounded genuine. "Gods, Anya, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand." "I know," Anya said, and her voice was stronger now, more certain. "But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't undo the years." She stood, Kaelin rising with her, his hand never leaving her waist. "You'll have to live with what you did, what you were. And I'll have to live with what was done to me. But I won't let it destroy me. I won't become the monster they feared." She turned away from Celine, from the past, from everything that had tried to break her. And she looked instead at Kaelin, at the man who'd seen her at her worst and chosen her anyway. "Take me home," Anya said softly. "I want to go home." Kaelin's smile was fierce and proud and full of something that looked dangerously close to love. "As you wish, my queen." The words sent a shiver through her. My queen. Not my broken one. Not my project. My queen. As if she'd been something worth crowning all along. They were preparing to leave the moon's hollow when the attack came. It started with a sound, the snap of a branch where no one should be standing. Then a scent on the wind that made Kaelin's entire body go rigid. "Ambush!" Thane roared, just as arrows began raining down from the tree line. Warriors scattered, shields raised, weapons drawn. But these weren't ordinary arrows. They burned with dark magic, designed to pierce through even a shifter's natural defenses. From the forest emerged figures in black armor, their faces covered by wolf skull masks. Dozens of them. Maybe more. And at their head walked a man Anya had never seen before, ancient, powerful, radiating the kind of authority that came from centuries of command. "Elder Corvus," Seraphine hissed, her face going pale. "The Shadow Council." "Who?" Anya asked, her wolf already rising to the surface, ready to fight. "The ones who wanted your bloodline extinct," Kaelin said grimly, pushing Anya behind him. "The ones who've been hunting Moon's blood wolves for generations." Elder Corvus stopped at the edge of the clearing, his cold eyes locking onto Anya. When he spoke, his voice was like gravel and old bones. "So, the prophecy comes to pass. The ether wolf awakens." He smiled, and it was a terrible thing. "How unfortunate for you that we were waiting." "You set this up," Kaelin snarled. "The hemlocks. The ritual. You knew." "We've known about the child since the day she was born," Corvus interrupted. "We helped her fool parents perform the blood siphon ritual. Convinced them it was the only way to save the world from another ether wolf's rampage." His smile widened. "And it worked. For 20 years, she remained dormant. Powerless. Safe. Until I took her," Kaelin said. "Until you played hero," Corvus agreed. We would have been content to let her live out her days as a mute servant. A warning to others of what happens to dangerous bloodlines. But you had to interfere. Had to give her back her power. He gestured, and his warriors began to advance. Now we have no choice but to finish what we started centuries ago. The moon's bloodline ends today. Anya felt her wolf surge forward, power flooding her veins. The silver light began to emanate from her skin again, her eyes blazing with fury. You want to end my bloodline? Anya's voice rang out across the clearing, clear and strong and absolutely fearless. Then come try. But know this, Elder Corvus. I am not my ancestors. I am not some mindless beast that will destroy the world because I'm angry. She stepped forward, out from behind Kalen's protection, and let her wolf show in her eyes. I am Anya. I am the broken one who refused to stay broken. And if you think I survived 20 years of hell just to let you kill me now, you're about to learn exactly what an ether wolf can do when she's fighting for something worth protecting. The temperature dropped. The ground beneath her feet began to frost over. And somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled even though the sky was clear. The ether wolf was awake. The ether wolf was angry. But this time, she had a master who knew how to direct that rage. Protect the king, Anya said to his warriors. This is my fight. And then she shifted. The battle that followed would be spoken of in whispers for generations. The ether wolf moved like lightning given form, like winter's fury made flesh. She didn't just fight, she rewrote reality itself around her. Time stuttered where her paws touched the ground. Space folded when she lunged, allowing her to cross impossible distances in a single bound. The Shadow Council's warriors fell like wheat before a scythe, their dark magic useless against a creature that existed partially outside the normal laws of nature. But Anya didn't kill them. Even in her rage, even with every reason to destroy these people who'd orchestrated her suffering, she held back. She broke bones, shattered weapons, sent warriors flying into trees with enough force to knock them unconscious. But she didn't kill, because that's not who she was. That's not who she chose to be. Elder Corvus watched his forces fall with growing horror. Impossible, he breathed. She should be mindless. Feral. The trauma should have made her unstable. She's not unstable, Kalen said, appearing beside the elder with his blade at the ancient wolf's throat. She's stronger than all of you. Stronger than your fear. Stronger than your prophecies. He pressed the blade closer. And she's under my protection. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call off your warriors. You're going to return to your Shadow Council. And you're going to tell them that if anyone ever comes for her again, I will personally burn your organization to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. Corvus stared at him, then at the ether wolf standing in the center of carnage she'd created without taking a single life. You think mercy makes her safe? He asked. You think choosing not to kill us proves she's not dangerous? I think it proves she's more human than you'll ever be, Kalen said coldly. Now call them off. Before she changes her mind. The elder raised his hand, and his remaining warriors retreated into the shadows. But before he left, he looked at Anya one last time. The prophecy still stands, girl. She who is broken shall break the world. Mercy today doesn't erase what you're destined to become. Anya shifted back to human form, standing naked and unashamed in the center of the clearing. Her silver eyes met his without fear. Then I'll break the world, she said simply. But I'll break it to make it better. To make it a place where girls like me aren't stolen from, aren't beaten, aren't silenced. Her voice grew stronger. I'll break every system that allows the powerful to prey on the weak. I'll shatter every law that protects abusers and punishes victims. If that's what the prophecy means, if that's what you're afraid of, then yes. I will absolutely break your world. Corvus stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. Perhaps, he said quietly, that's exactly what the world needs. And then he was gone, disappearing into the forest with his defeated warriors. The journey back to the Iron Citadel was quiet. Contemplative. Anya rode beside Kaelin, wrapped in his cloak, her wolf humming contentedly beneath her skin. She could feel the creature now, not as a separate entity, but as part of herself. They were one. Complete. Whole. What happens now? Anya asked, her new voice still feeling strange in her mouth. The council will hear about what happened. About what I am. Let them, Kaelin said. Let the whole world know. You're under the protection of the Winter King. Anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me first. He glanced at her, his silver eyes soft. Besides, I have a feeling you can protect yourself now. Anya smiled, and it felt like the first real smile of her life. I think I can. But... She hesitated. I don't want to do it alone. I don't want to be this all-powerful creature that everyone fears. I just want... She struggled to find the words. To belong. Kaelin offered gently. Yes. Anya looked at him, really looked at him, this broken king who'd saved her not because he needed a weapon, but because he'd recognized a kindred spirit. With you. If you'll have me. Kaelin pulled his horse to a stop, and the convoy halted around them. He dismounted, then lifted Anya down, his hands gentle on her waist. When her feet touched the ground, he cupped her face in his scarred hands. Anya, he said, his voice rough with emotion. From the moment I saw you hiding in those shadows, trying to be invisible, still fighting to survive despite everything they'd done to you, I knew. You were mine. Not as a possession. As a choice. As the other half of my soul that I didn't know I was missing. His thumb brushed across her cheek. So yes, I'll have you. Today. Tomorrow. Every day after. If you'll have a broken king who's done terrible things and will probably do more terrible things to keep you safe. Anya's hands came up to cover his, tears streaming down her face, but happy tears this time. Healing tears. I choose you, she whispered. I choose us. Kaelin leaned down and kissed her, and it was nothing like the romance stories Anya had read in stolen books. It was rough and desperate and real, two broken people choosing each other, choosing healing, choosing love despite every reason they had to be afraid. When they finally broke apart, Anya was breathless and smiling and more alive than she'd ever been. So what now? She asked. What does the ether wolf do with her happily ever after? Kaelin's smile was fierce. She becomes queen. She helps me rule. She shows the world that power doesn't have to corrupt. That the broken can heal. That mercy is strength, not weakness. He pulled her close. And maybe, if we're lucky, she helps me figure out how to be something more than the Winter King who kills everything he touches. I think you're already more than that, Anya said softly. You just needed someone to see it. Behind them, Thane cleared his throat loudly. My king, if you're done being disgustingly romantic, we should probably keep moving. Before more assassins show up. Kaelin laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. Always so practical, Thane. Someone has to be when you're busy making heart eyes at the girl who can reshape reality. The convoy began moving again, heading toward home. Toward the Iron Citadel. Toward a future that was uncertain and dangerous and full of challenges. But for the first time in her life, Anya wasn't afraid. She had her wolf. She had her voice. She had a man who saw her brokenness and loved her anyway. And she had a choice, the thing she dreamed about in that dark closet for 20 years. The choice to decide who she would become. 6 months later, Anya stood on the balcony of the Iron Citadel, watching the sun set over the kingdom that had become her home. She wore a dress of silver silk, her dark hair braided with moonstone beads. At her side, Kaelin stood in formal armor, looking every inch the Winter King, except for the way he kept glancing at her, his expression soft with something that looked like wonder. Behind them, the throne room was being prepared for a ceremony. Their ceremony. The one where the broken girl and the ruthless king would formally bond as mates before the entire realm. Nervous? Kaelin asked, his hand finding hers. Terrified, Anya admitted, her voice stronger now but still carrying traces of vulnerability. What if I'm not ready? What if being queen is too much? What if? What if you're exactly what this kingdom needs? Kaylin interrupted gently. What if the girl who survived hell is exactly the person who can help others survive theirs? He turned her to face him. You're not alone in this, Anya. We'll figure it out together. Anya smiled, leaning into his warmth. Together, she agreed. In the distance, her wolf howled not in rage or pain, but in joy, in freedom, in the pure happiness of finally being whole. And Anya howled back, her voice joining her wolf's in a song that spoke of survival and healing and love that grew in the darkest places. The broken girl had become a queen. The stolen wolf had found her way home. And the world that had tried to destroy them both would have to learn to accept what they'd become. Or burn trying. So tell me, dear listener, dear dreamer, dear survivor of your own darkness, would you have chosen her? The broken girl with scars and silence? Or would you have feared her too much to see the strength underneath? Would you have given her back her wolf, knowing the risk? Knowing she could destroy everything? Or would you have left her hollow to keep the world safe? And if you were her, if your voice had been stolen, your power ripped away, your very soul carved out before you could even speak, would you have chosen mercy? Would you have held back from becoming the monster they feared? Or would you have burned the world down and danced in the ashes? These are the questions that haunt the moon's hollow. These are the stories that echo through the Iron Citadel's halls. This is what happens when the broken refuse to stay broken. When the powerless reclaim their strength. When love chooses to see past the scars to the soul underneath. If this story lit something inside you, if Anya's journey spoke to the broken parts of your own heart, then subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Because here, in this space we've carved out together, we tell tales that burn. We give voice to the voiceless. We crown the broken ones and watch them rise. We believe that mercy is strength. That love is a choice. That survival is its own kind of victory. And we believe that every girl who's been told she's too broken, too damaged, too dangerous to love deserves to hear a story where someone looks at her and says, I choose you. All of you. Broken pieces and all. So subscribe. Join us. Let us tell you more stories of wolves who howl at injustice, of queens who rise from ashes, of love that refuses to give up even when the world says it should. Because Anya's story isn't over. The prophecy still echoes. The world still needs breaking. And we're just getting started. Welcome to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, where the broken become legends, where the voiceless find their howl, where every ending is just another beginning, and where you, yes, you, are always chosen.